First up, we have Elizabeth Dunne, who is the Director of Legal Advocacy with the Earth Law Center here in Olympia, having driven down from Clallam County. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Great. I didn't know I was going to get to be at the podium. So, as Eric said, I'm Elizabeth Dunne, the Director of Legal Advocacy at the Earth Law Center. So I'm an attorney and I'm also a resident of Clallam County, Port Angeles, Washington, and Lower Elwha-Clallam Territory. So I kind of have my two hats, my hat as an advocate in the broader sense and my hat as a local advocate. So I'm just going to share my experience in Port Angeles. And I guess first tell you briefly on the Earth Law Center, what we do is advocate to transform laws and policies to better reflect the human-nature relationship. And that is what a lot of us are doing here today. There's a strong relationship between human health and well-being and the health and well-being of our forests, as I think a lot of us know. And getting out into these forests and meeting these trees and spending time there is what builds that energy and builds that relationship as a community. And so we're going to hear about a lot of different components to what we can do to protect these legacy forests. And we have the Board of Natural Resources, we have the state agency piece, we have the state legislature, we have our local governments, and we have we have people. And that is where we have this massive number, this massive resource, all of us coming together to do this, to go into these forests and to make this change. And so I'm hoping that you all leave here today knowing that you can make a difference individually and collectively. And I was going to share, I was actually reading this kid's book in the car on the way here, because I have a 3-year-old, which is a great book called The Tree by Dana Lyons. Some of you may know of it. And I actually opened it up, and Jane Goodall did a little quote at the beginning, which I think fits really well in talking about grassroots advocacy, which says, I quote, only if we understand can we care. Only if we care will we help. Only if we help shall all be saved. And I think that's just such a beautiful quote. And this is also just a very beautiful book that talks about the relationship with trees. And Dana explains his experience getting a song from the tree and also expresses the kind of affirmance of that from Lummi elders, that he heard this song, the Douglas fir in the Olympic National Forest, come through this tree. And then Lummi elders said, yes, all the trees have their songs. And so I'm just going to share briefly what we've been up to in Port Angeles. There's a forest, a legacy forest, naturally regenerated in the Elwha River Valley. And I think, are most people here familiar with the Elwha River and the Elwha River Valley? Right. A magical place. We're so lucky. There's so many magical places here in Washington and on the Olympic Peninsula and the Elwha River Valley, site of the largest completed dam removal in U.S. history. Yeah, amazing, right? Federal government has spent $327 million restoring this watershed. And then we have this forest on state land that the state is supposed to be stewarding, and 100 acres of forest that the state has auctioned off for logging, which will basically be clear-cut logging. And there's old-growth trees in these forests, there's complexity, there's just a wealth of biodiversity. And I wanted to stop and say that I think legacy forest is an excellent term, and also when you go into these forests, you might think about it, there's old growth trees in here. And they just don't qualify for maybe the technical definition of old growth right now, the whole forest. But maybe we think of it as the old growth forest, because old growth trees don't live in isolation without their community, without other trees. Just like we don't live in isolation without each other and companionship. And so the city of Port Angeles actually took a bold action to send a letter to DNR saying, unanimous vote, saying, we don't want this forest logged. This forest is important to protect the health of the watershed. We get our water from the Elwha River. This is our drinking water supply. Honestly, it's pretty crazy when you think about this is what's happening, right? And We're lucky to have Councilmember Latricia Suggs, really took the lead on this. She's a member of the Jamestown Slalom tribe as well, and had actually worked for 16 years on the Lower Elwha River restoration. And so I was lucky, right, as an advocate coming to my council, I already had someone who really understood the situation and the importance of this. But even if you don't, and you're working with your council, and they're willing to listen, we have so much information to show why these forests are so important. And so sharing that information, I really feel like once people understand that, and once they see that, they're willing to say, wait, this is something we need to change. We can't be doing this. We need to find a solution. And that's the place we're at now in Clallam County. We actually have a new commissioner. Our old commissioner, Bill Peach, used to serve on the Board of Natural Resources and had a voice really for the timber industry. And now we have a new commissioner who's interested in looking towards solutions. And so I guess I should note that what we've done too is organize community events to get people out into the forest. We had our first event, 45 people came, or more than that, I think, and 3 of our council members came and spoke about the importance of this forest. We've had 2 other events organized by community members, and I'm here today speaking, but we have community members that are energized about this and are doing lots of work. So I'm also here representing them for their hard work, handing out petitions, raising awareness. And even though it's been auctioned, it's not a done deal. They haven't started logging yet. And I think because of how quickly DNR is auctioning off these forests, that we have to remember that we still need to be taking action. If you meet a forest and you want to speak for that forest and be that voice for the forest, you can be that voice for that forest. And you can do that. Just keep going. Keep doing it. It is worth your time. And I just want to thank you all for being here today. And please feel free to reach out to me after this, email me, whatever information and resources I can share. The Center for Responsible Forestry has an amazing volunteer coordinator, Brell, who does a lot of this work and just is instrumental. He came to our hike too, and so I just would be amiss if I didn't speak to his great work in elevating the voices of the community and all of you. I hope I didn't go on too long. I meant to say, please stop me.